Welcome to Ashley on CBD, your one-stop podcast where we drop the truth on all things CBD and maybe some pop culture too. Stick around as we delve deep into the practical health benefits of CBD for you.
Welcome to the show. Thank you for listening. Today's episode, as always, is brought to you by Magic Immuna Tea, available at packedwithlife.com. What could be more important in today's world than having a strong immune system? Probably nothing. But how do you do that? Diet, exercise? Well, no kidding. But what I've recently started doing is drinking Magic Immuna Tea. Number one, it tastes great, and it's loaded with healthy nutrients called adaptogens, including 4 essential mushrooms, reishi, lion's mane, chaga, and cordyceps. No, not the magic kind, you guys. Come on. Reishi, lion's mane, chaga, and cordyceps are great for you. Highly nutritious and very adept at boosting your immune system. So give Magic Immuna Tea a try at packedwithlife.com. Hello, Dr. Kat.
Hello, Ashley.
Hi there. Welcome to the long Thanksgiving weekend. I hope everything's going great for you.
Oh, it's wonderful. Thank you. And the same to you.
Well, thanks for being on the show here with us. Your background is really interesting to me, and I look forward to talking to you today and focusing on cannabis and cannabinoids, CBD, and specifically your experience with cancer and also what you're doing with integrative medicines and everything that you're up to there. So why don't you start by just giving us a little bit of an introduction on yourself, and we can just kind of take the conversation from there if that works.
Oh, thank you. As you know, you're calling me Dr. Kat. My name is Dr. Katerina Rozakis, and Dr. Kat is what I go by because of the decision that people make to call me. So anyway, I'm here because I love the natural health realm. I studied in natural health over 20 years ago, and I ended up working as a natural health integrative medicine doctor and an integrative psychotherapist. I'm the owner of Insight Wellness Center, and I am a psycho-oncologist, along other many things.
That's great. So tell us, I think, to start with, and I hope we're not jumping into it too soon, but I would love to talk about your story, your personal story with cancer. As I understand it, you're a survivor, and obviously cancer is something that's top of mind to a lot of us who've been touched by that one way or another with our families or ourselves. And my father actually recently passed away from cancer. So it's really, a sensitive topic for me. So I'd just love to hear, what you're willing to share with us about your journey through that and how cannabis came into play and or CBD. Cannabis is CBD. I like to say that a lot on this podcast. I want people to understand that what it really is. It's just a non-psychoactive version of the cannabis plant. But anyway, why don't you, if you could, take it away and tell us a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, so I'm sorry to hear about your father's passing.
Oh, thank you.
There isn't anybody on the planet who has not been affected by cancer, either a friend or a family member. And I myself, I spent so many years in the natural health realm. My brother was a bodybuilder. My mother, only cooked healthy Greek foods, the Mediterranean diet and longevity and health. And my father's a Spartan. And so he used to make us wake up every day and exercise. He used to make us get in the snow in our pajamas to build our immune system. And so it was no surprise that I was interested in being in the natural health realm. No one expected that I would be diagnosed with cancer. And when I got diagnosed with a cancer, people would call me and they say, "Why you?" Because my job was to help people to prevent illness. And cancer, as we know, does not have an age. It doesn't have a sex. It affects anybody. And there's so much that we need to learn about cancer because we look at genetics, we look at lifestyle and what to eat. And, I didn't have it in my family. There were no genetics. I did genetic testing because I was quite surprised. My father's one of 12, my mother's one of 7. So it's a pretty large family. And then again, teaching people, about methylation and so forth. So obviously, when I got diagnosed 7 years ago, I was a deer in headlights. I I was shocked. Everybody's shocked, and they go through the phases of grief. For me, having 3 children, and like most moms, there was no way that I was going to let this thing get me down. However, being a deer in headlights, I lost all of the education I had in my head. It was as if I was following this white light right into conventional medicine.
Right.
I'm in complementary, integrative. It means using the best of the East and the West. And yet I was just going straight for what the doctors were telling me. And, one day after, the shock started to wear off, I started to say, I need to do more. And because you can't really heal yourself or your family, there's so much subjective things going on. I hired 2 people, one naturopath and one functional medicine doctor. And having studied in natural health over 21 years ago, the first class that we take is about cancer, the history of cancer, how cancer was treated conventionally. And so the people that I worked with immediately wanted me to start being on cannabis. I didn't use it recreationally. I didn't feel I needed to, and I didn't use it for my health. Now I know better. Preventatively, I think everybody should be taking a little bit CBD, and we'll talk about that daily.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt like this was something that I was going to consider. But my natural health doctors were insisting. Not only that, every day, I would say for a couple of weeks, it was very bizarre. I'd open the door of my house and it'd be a little brown bag. And in that, why people didn't give it to me, I don't know. Why they showed up at 11 o'clock at night. But this is 7 years ago.
Right.
And so I would open up the brown bag and there was all these goodies, from brownies to gummies, tinctures, every type of cannabis you can imagine. I felt like I was progressing okay because I was using complementary medicines with my chemo, but it caught up with me. I had metastatic cancer. I had it in my chest, my lymph nodes, in both my breasts. And so the chemo was very hard. I had to go in for a radical mastectomy, and then bouts of chemo for a very long time, and then 13 weeks of daily radiation in 6 areas. So while I was going through the chemotherapy, a lot of the medications caused you discomfort and pain. And it was a Friday night and I had so much pain. Nothing I was doing was helping me. And so I reached for the bag, and what did I pull out? What do you think I pulled out?
The brownie.
Everybody says the brownie. I'm glad I didn't pull out the brownie because I would have been more trouble. The cookie.
The cookie, okay.
Second choice. It was this big. And I remember sitting on my blue couch. I remember the color so clearly, and these beautiful, lavender lampshades with little crystals hanging down, which I, every day, busy working, didn't even pay any attention to it. Was sitting down and took a little bite, and I hadn't eaten. As we know, with cancer, we don't have an appetite, and we'll talk about CBD with that as well. Right. And so the edible started working pretty quickly on me. And it was the most amazing thing. It wasn't that my pain went away. It was that I was getting distant from my pain. And I started noticing things around me. I started noticing that lampshade and the soft velour of the couch. And I wasn't focusing in on me. And I thought to myself, I'm going to go take a bath. If this feels good, the water is going to feel good. It was something I hadn't done, with operations, you avoid water. Right. But before I went into the bath, I got frightened. And I thought to myself, what if this wears off and the pain comes back? That's how bad the pain was. I got terrified. And so I ate the whole cookie. And as we know, this had THC in it. Unfortunately for me, and not for everybody, I had a reaction to the THC. where I started feeling very anxious and did start having some pain back, but it was more of the anxiety. What I know now, because I continued my studies while I was going through treatments and finished a certification in psycho-oncology, and through future studies, is that CBD, hemp cannabinoid, is an antidote to THC. And so if I knew then what I know now, would have taken a little bit more of the CBD. However, I knew it helped me. And I knew that I had made a mistake out of desperation to have too much. And hopefully we'll talk about dosing as well, because we don't need a lot, right?
Right.
Little can be more. So I went looking for, and 7 years ago, it's not like today where you could easily find CBD without THC. So I found something that had very little THC in it and CBD, and then used it routinely since then. Up until now, I'm still going through surgery. I had a major surgery in December and having another one in a month because of the scarring and the multiple surgeries. I'm using the topical CBD. And with what we're going to talk about today, it doesn't leave my bedside.
Right. Wow. Well, thank you. There's so much more, I guess, to unpack on this, but thank you for sharing so far. And it's, fortunately, my experience, I guess, fortunately or unfortunately, it's always, either yourself or someone you love, right? And in my case, my experience is someone I love, and watching him go through the pain of chemo and how real everything gets in that time, and the fact that you're able to benefit from that. I'm glad that you're sharing that, because I think, in my father's case, he probably would have benefited from a lot more stories about what you're saying, because I don't think he really had the confidence to, even though I've been in the business for 5 years myself, right? It's still, like you said, the path to traditional medicine is so intense. When you get into that cancer zone, your life is threatened, and you're scared, and you're there's all these emotions that you're experiencing, and it's really easy to just fall right in line with whatever the doctors say. And unfortunately, there's a lot of things that they don't say, right? That I think people have to experience and become aware of through other means. So I really appreciate you sharing that with us. And one of the things I heard in talking with some of my other colleagues on this show is to explain that reaction that you had. Maybe again, I'm not a physician or a PhD, so I don't have the qualifications to really talk on it. But in what I understood from speaking with Dr. Joseph Rosado, excuse me, who was just on the program, what happens is your heart rate increases and your blood pressure drops with cannabis. And so therefore that's what creates that racing feeling that creates the anxiety, and that can lead into that, kind of a panic attack kind of situation. But anyway, I'm glad you shared that as well. So anybody that's listening to this can understand what to expect and to not get too scared about something like that if it does happen to them.
And it's not everybody. Everybody's body reacts differently because of their endocannabinoid system. And of course, the strain, of the CBD and THC combination.
Right. Which is something that is really lacking in science, right? In terms of what does what. And I think a lot of people are developing, originally the theory was as simple as sativa indica hybrid. Sativa to make you more on the upside, indica to put you more on the sleepy side, and a hybrid for during the day. Unfortunately, I think most of us realize now that's not that simple. And a lot of times, there are sativas that can lead to a more down effect. There are indicas that can lead to a more uplifting effect. And I think what the emerging science is suggesting is that it's all terpene based. So it's really the terpene combinations that you're finding, and what that does for your individual body and what you react to based on those terpenes is really the effect that you're going to get from the cannabis, which is
absolutely. And I work with hemp CBD primarily, and we don't find that people get that heart rate. It actually helps slow the heart rate down. That's why the CBD helps with anxiety. And that's
Yeah.
why, when you look at the THC, the higher, like we explained earlier, the higher the THC and the lower the CBD, the higher the chances, as Joseph had explained, will happen to you.
Right.
And you're right, there's so much research that needs to be done. Everybody's growing, they're doing hybrid. It's very important to know your source. And I hope you talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So, what are your thoughts on sourcing? I mean, I've been in the business for a while. I mean, there's, it really comes down to quality, right? But do you have any particular things that you would suggest folks look for when they're
Well,
thinking about that?
yes, people come to me because I'm a specialist of looking at something complementary or alternative. A lot of people don't want to have a lot of prescription medication. They rather start the natural route. And, taking an oath to do no harm and truly believing in wellness. I didn't look at CBD as, oh, wow, here's something that, we can try. I looked at it as, what does it have to offer? What are the health benefits and what are the problems that it can occur? I'm an inventor and I invented something 20 years ago that I thought was amazing. But when you do the research, you see there's problems. So that's why it's so important to allow time to learn. And so what I do is I vet products that I recommend, and I want to make sure that it's pure. Pure means that there may not be any mold or pesticide toxins per se in the CBD. As we know, hemp CBD has been used to clean grounds, in areas where there's toxic. It's a beautiful plant. It pulls up everything. But as it pulls up all these wonderful nutrients for our body, it also pulls up all the toxins. And so looking for something that's organic from the soil, all the way up to the way the plant is raised. It's not enough to just be tested. In my opinion, it needs to be tested, through a outside lab, third-party tested.
Right. No doubt.
I think it's very important that you can read the label. There was a study that showed that, I don't know what percent it was, but I believe it was around 80%. What was in the bottle, what was not on the packaging. And, how can I dose something like that? We want to start low, but if I know that I'm using something that's a pure CBD and has the amount of CBD in milligrams, then I know how to help titrate or to monitor. And as science, we can see what really helps. If we don't get to a science with what's in the CBD, it's going to be very hard to dose it in the natural realm. We know that pharmaceutical companies are getting involved, and they, synthesize medicines, and they've created synthetic cannabis for certain medical illnesses. So those are dosable, but they're not natural. And, the natural has minimum side effects, unlike something that the body doesn't recognize. And CBD is something that the body recognizes. So I do look also for full spectrum meaning that the whole plant is in there. I believe in whole milk. And that's important because there's a synergistic and entourage effect that happens when you have the whole. Now with CBD, there's 0.0% THC or 0.03, which is non-psychoactive and considered over the counter, right? So there's some people I have people who are in the law enforcement. I work with many nurses and they have to get tested. And in some places, there's zero tolerance for even a legal amount of THC. And so that's where I would recommend a broad spectrum, which is the full plant without the THC.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you for clarifying that. I know that's a point of confusion for a lot of people, and it changes a lot in the marketplace. There's some manufacturers that are, being very liberal with how they're using those terminologies. So thank you for kind of laying out what to really look for there and the questions to ask. One of the things on this whole topic is one of the things we want to do here on the show is to it's all about education and awareness and helpfulness, for people to get the right information that are looking for it. And so with that, I've thought about, actually, we just started, I haven't rolled it out yet, but we're going to be having a CBD products rating and reviews here, so that we can, since we're not operating to sell any products necessarily, we're going to provide some ratings on all the popular brands, and ask anybody that wants to have their product rated to send it to us, and we'll get it up and review the product for them.
That's a very good idea, because we need reference points. We
Right.
need, there's so many websites out there, and people are tooting their own horn because they want to make money, and that's not a bad thing. But you don't know, how to decipher who's who. So I'm very happy to hear that. It's very exciting.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that you think it's a good idea, because you never know, right? It's what are the right things that we need to do to really help break through and help people understand what this is and what it isn't. So
we need to talk.
Yeah, exactly. So switching gears a little bit, talk about, you mentioned earlier, alluded to CBD as part of a daily routine. Talk to us about that. Why you recommend that, and what kind of daily dosing you typically are looking for there.
Okay, so you're asking about me, and I think you're asking about general. Is that correct?
Yeah, in general, like what you would recommend to the people that are that you're working with.
Well, with CBD, always start slow and titrate up or down as needed. Again, everybody's cannabinoid system is different. When we're talking about cancer, there's research that is very promising around the area of cancer. In 2013, there was evidence showing that cannabinoids were to reduce tumor size, and they interfere with cancer cell migration, adhesion, invasions, metastasis, and so forth. It has shown to stop proliferation in new cancer cells. So I feel that not only just with cancer, we know about inflammation and pain, and inflammation being a culprit to most illnesses. And so if you're taking a little bit of CBD, like you would a vitamin D3, but with vitamin D3, not everybody may need it. We can get our blood work. We can't get our blood work done and see how much our cannabinoids are yet, and how much each person will need. And so I always recommend a little bit, see how you feel. Possibly because there could be a side effect, even though it's not psychoactive, you may feel a little sleepy during the day, and what terpene it's mixed with, you may have more focus. But at night, because it calms down the heart, you may have lots of thoughts about work, or something that's bothering you, but the cortisol or the adrenaline's not rushing, so you can still have your thoughts and sleep. So very little for preventative, in general, for the daily dose that we were talking about. And then if somebody's coming in and needing it for a treatment, again, always collaborating with the doctor, looking at what other medications somebody's on, because we do know that CBD can increase the serum level of some medications. And we're looking at the metabolism of CBD in the liver. There's some good news that says that CBD may not plug the same pathway, but that it actually goes through and allows the medicines. But there's so much research, and it's, over 5,000 studies at this time in CBD. There's over 20,000 on cannabis itself, historically. The other thing that we do know, so that's the preventative, but from the treatment perspective, there's research that shows that CBD can actually cut the feeder veins that provides that supply the tumor with oxygen and nutrients. And so, I think it's important. Everybody's different. CBD is not for everybody. It's, there are skeptics, as there need to be, because this is a new arena. But I look at CBD as aspirin or opiates when they first started. These are plants that have done such amazing things. Aspirin, not so much, it's all good, but opiates have changed our lives tremendously, but it can cause some harm. And so we need to make sure that we're moving responsibly with whatever we're using. And we do encourage dialogue And I think by putting up the information, and here's the other good thing about putting a website up where people can go and look, the competitors are going to want to be up there. And people are going to see that the competitors may have a product that people are seeking because it checks off all those right boxes. And it's going to maybe create a little bit more responsibility, but for people also to know, that there is a difference. I don't want to see CBD go away because it cause somebody harm.
Right, because of bad actors, right? I think the study
Absolutely.
a couple of years ago, the FDA, I think they studied or they pulled about 20 products off of the shelves, and if I recall, there was something like 14 or more. I need to do my homework and get the actual fact. Quite a few of them, let's say, that didn't even have any CBD in the product whatsoever. And there was, the vast majority of them also were tainted with, heavy metals or pesticides or some kind of toxic, contaminant that obviously you wouldn't want to ingest.
Well, here's the number: 16 pesticides on street cannabis, and up to 1 in a dispensary. And I think that was 4 years ago that I read about that research. Pesticides alone. I mean,
right.
You smoke them. If you burn mold or pesticide, it can be very harmful with time. So again, this wonderful plant that is here, like everything in nature, to support us, needs to be treated, with respect and whole.
So I guess going back to a little bit, I realized in looking at my notes, we didn't really get into the details on, your cancer. When you were doing, I assume you did THC and CBD as part of your.
I started with, and I had that reaction with THC. And so I looked into getting something that had very little THC and CBD until I found just CBD alone. And that's where I started even carrying it in my practice, and researching.
So were you doing heavy doses of CBD then during your cancer?
No, I didn't need heavy doses, and people don't need heavy doses. As a matter of fact, with cancer, there are so many symptoms. And what CBD does is it covers, 5 very important areas. One of them is pain, whether it's from surgery, the cancer itself can cause pain, emotional pain. And we know that CBD works very well with neuropathic pain. Okay. And so it's wonderful. And I used it for that. I used it for swelling. The type of chemo that I had, and many of the chemos very strong, they can cause neuropathy, and it can continue for the rest of your life. And so I was putting topical CBD on my feed. I recommend that along with other supplements. Again, it's not just CBD. CBD is a part of a regime. We know that there's anxiety and depression. Am I going to survive? What's going to happen to my family? I couldn't work. I had to put everything on hold. I was so lucky that I had a great network, that came in to support me and help my practice. I have a big clinic. And so it was pretty scary. And we know that CBD offers similar effects to SSRIs. Those are serotonin reuptakers, which is what you see in your major antidepressants, that help the transmission of 5-HTP in the brain. So the research suggests that it helps affect your serotonin receptors faster and have fewer negative effects than some medications. But then again, we need more research, but we know how it works with anxiety. So that was something that I used it for. And I had your typical nausea. I didn't have vomiting, but I'm the type of person, you put me in the back seat or an airplane, I feel sorry for the person in the front.
Right.
So after I started using the CBD, I had no nausea. And till this day, I can read in the backseat of a car. These are not some things that I have been experiencing for a month. I mean, we're talking about 7 years now. And I even went, to Disneyland with my children to celebrate, and went on a ride I would never go, that would turn my stomach upside down. It caused calm. And we know that with, fear can trigger nausea. The other thing that happened is, I immediately lost 40 pounds. I look like a little skeleton. And so we know that CBD can stimulate the appetite. CBD, THC. A lot of people will talk about how the THC, we've heard about the munchies, but and they say that if you want to do that, use cannabis versus a cannabidiol. However, there's a lot of wonderful research coming out on CBDA, A standing for acid, and that's the CBDA in a plant. That's the part that goes away as soon as you start heating up the plant. So, it's using the highest level of processing or not processing, to get a good grade of CBD. And they found that the CBDA actually helps with nausea and to stimulate the appetite. So those are all things that I used. And inflammation, pain in my joints. I was on a medication after my fourth treatment was a pill. And that caused my body to have severe joint pain and led to osteoporosis. So what happened was if I wanted to get out of bed, I couldn't walk, I couldn't move my feet. By the time I would go to the bathroom, I could start walking again. So literally walking across the room was really hard. It was like, all I can explain it is as a stiffness, and it hurts. So, you can't walk. And when I started using more CBD, putting it on my feet, it actually removed the stiffness. And I read somewhere on the research where CBD can mimic estrogen without the side effects of estrogen. That's something that definitely needs to be looked in more because I had estrogen related hormone cancer. And so I have to keep away from anything that can stimulate estrogen and take an estrogen blocker. And so there's a lot of stuff that you can't, use. And knowing that the CBD may possibly be helping me with my bones and not totally robbing me of my estrogen that the medicine does, that I get the good benefits without the negative, which is, estrogen feeding cancer.
Well, it makes sense.
Go on and on and on.
No, that makes sense. That's what plants would do, right? That's why.
Absolutely.
So just one of the things, did I look on your background, and one of the things that caught my attention, there's something that you mentioned about energy work.
Oh, yes.
Tell me about that.
Energy work, when I was studying, my focus wasn't on energy work, and it caught my attention, and I thought, I'm going to take this as an elective. When you're studying natural health sciences, you study the philosophy of natural health, from the East and the West, and it's naturopathy, Ayurvedic medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, naturopathy. You have to study all of those. And energy work was an elective. And so I took it thinking, like, what is this? It's body work. It could go anywhere from Reiki to massage to chakra. It's understanding the chi in the body and the flow. And at the center, because I believe in integrative treatment. So if somebody comes in because they're depressed and they come in for psychotherapy, we look at the whole person in their environment, offer alternative medicines to include guided meditation and Reiki. And we offer that in collaboration with the care that we do so people can heal as a whole. So energy work is really looking at the person's chakras and then stimulating the energy flow. And with Reiki, you don't need to touch the person like you do with massage. Mm-hmm. And I believe, doing the work that I have done, that there's emotional blockage for so many people that can cause disease. Rushing can cause disease. Negative thoughts, no matter how healthy you are, resentments, those things can cause disease. And when I started studying the chakra, I noticed that in ancient times, all the way till now, they're looking at the energy and the suppression developmentally. What I've noticed is that where the suppression is, there's psychological issues. It's not just problems with your gut or cardiac issues because you were abandoned, or issues with your throat. There's also the inability to speak, to allow somebody to come in and love you. And so that's a little bit on
No, it's
energy.
great. I'm a big believer. I ask because I get energy work probably 2 times a month at least.
It's so healing. It's so relaxing too, isn't it?
Yeah, yes, it is, and it's real. I mean, I wanted you to explain it because you would do a better job than I would ever do in terms of technically what it is. But it's something that I think I wanted to share with my listeners because it's been a game changer. I think my mind opened up. I had, my story was I had an accident and I found cannabis to be very, especially, THC to take away the pain after my accident. And then CBD really started to heal me, heal the nerves, at least for me, and rebuild a lot of the pathways that I think were damaged. But anyway, through that process, I became more aware of the ability of the body to respond to plant medicine, which then leads you into the idea of understanding that, if you've ever, I had a lot of chiropractic work done over the years because of that accident as well. And you start to realize that, yes, there's some physical things there, but a lot of the things that come up in our lives and our bodies are mental, most of them. Right. And so I also makes me, I hope don't be insulted by this question, but it makes me wonder with you, because it makes me think the same thing about my father. There's no history of cancer in our family. He's from a large family. My mom's from a large family. Nobody has cancer. My dad gets it and dies very rapidly. Right. And I, with what I know about this, not nearly as much as you do, but what I know about it and what I'm wondering and learning more and more about is, what was really the cause of his cancer. And I wonder if you have thought about that with you, or if that's too personal, feel free to, you don't have to go there,
no personal for me. I use myself as an avenue. Stories are everything. Being vulnerable, we're relatable, because people see healthcare providers and, maybe people like yourself who, are at the top of your field and, they don't understand that, we're people and we experience the same thing and we need to talk about it. And so I did a lot of exploration around that area. Everything is energy, right? You eat something that's alive, that's green, transfer the energy into your body. What I did is I've changed. I didn't think I had an ego. And I realized that it comes in different forms. And, I reviewed, I got very angry. I said to myself, what were you waiting for, Katerina? You're working, rushing, you want to do things later in your life, have a dream retirement, and you've done nothing. You've done nothing but work, rush. And so I evaluated myself. I'm an optimist. I think I was born a happy person. And, but, I recognized that was a problem in myself. And we know, as I mentioned earlier, rushing is a disease. The mind can affect our body. It can change our cells. That's why energy work, is real. And it's not, we can see it right now. There are ways to measure the energy and the heat in the body. And if you're suppressing something, if you're a high achiever, that's not always the best thing. And we know that high achievers, people who go, and do a lot, and I've done a lot. We haven't even touched the surface. And I used to be proud of it, of what I did and how much I did. But now it's all about slowing down, relaxing, recognizing that I can get things done faster when I go slower. It's cancer and many diseases from an energy perspective are affected by our environment, meaning the people that we surround and our inner dialogues. And it's so important to learn to recognize those and to change them, because it's not just CBD, it's not just medicine, it's not just learning skills or restructuring, it's learning what's inside you, deeply inside you, and doing the work.
Right. And it's a stressful world we live in, and
Oh yeah.
we all have different genetics and different environments, and all those things play out very differently. But I think the one thing that is constant is, the energy flow that we all have, and the reality that how that relates to the endocannabinoid system, I don't know. And maybe we don't know, but the two together are pretty interesting when it comes to health and wellness, because supplementing one and doing work on the other can really be a game changer for a lot of people. But you've got to be open, I think, and you got to be open to that as a concept, and to the lack of science, quote unquote, there, right? Because I say that with the quotes, everybody wants science these days, right? And it frustrates me because this is science emerging right before our eyes that people are ignoring, and that they're legislating away so that more science can't develop, right?
Well, we didn't have thousands of years, Ashley. I mean,
Right.
people were observing, things, and they could see things that we can't see now. Now we close our eyes, we take a pill, we don't question why we have a headache.
Right.
Did we drink water? And in regards to the endocannabinoid system, there's CB1 receptor and CB2. CB1 is cannabinoid 1, which covers our nervous system and our brain and our pain and our anxiety and depression. And CB2, our immune system. And the highest amount of CB2 is in our lymph nodes. And so, that goes back to, spread of cancer and all these. Yes, we need research, and yes, we need to be responsible, but there's also this sense of common sense. If your
Right.
endocannabinoid system is the largest receptor in your body, responsible for bringing your body into a balanced health receptors all over you, wanting you to be well. And we have endocannabinoids, means cannabinoids inside our body. And we have cannabinoids outside of our body. So when we're having phytocannabinoids, plant cannabinoids that are rich in all these different cannabinoids, I think there's over 140. I don't know, I have to look that up. It keeps changing. But when you eat it, it goes all over your body, and we do know scientifically that those exist, that the endocannabinoid is here. But they didn't discover it till the 1990s.
And they still don't teach it in medical schools. In the
No,
US anyway,
and that's why we need to be talking with doctors, why we collaborate. I just did a big Zoom with several doctors, and they wanted to know, but they also at the end, they're like, well, send me the research. And, I'm like, okay, I'll send you the research, but.
Did you tell them to call the US Department of Health and see if they wanted to look at the patent on antioxidants and neuroprotectants for Alzheimer's and stroke and epilepsy and Parkinson's? And yeah.
I'm a geriatric therapist also. I specialize in geriatrics, adults and geriatrics, but I have a huge 80% of my geriatric population. They all use CBD. They're the highest level. I work in the office with CBD clinicians, like myself, and we are in nursing homes and retirement, taking people off of Seroquel, taking them off of pain patches very successfully, or not even using them. And we're seeing improvement. People who have psychosis, the CBD, there's research that shows that it helps with schizophrenia. Psychosis is not schizophrenia, but it's altered state. And we see that helps. I've had kids on THC who started very young, ended up going into hospital settings, very depressed. They put them on so many pharmaceutical medicines. By the time I saw them, their IQ was really low because they never really had a chance to grow. And using CBD got them off of THC, got them off of the Seroquel, and back into life. And it can take 1 to 2 years when you're dealing with somebody who's been in that situation for years, or when you're working with a senior, it's pretty fast. I mean, we're talking about a day to a month. I mean, working with the aging population and those who don't have Alzheimer's, that don't have, Parkinson's, they do have, most all of us, arthritis and pain and
Right.
inflammation. And so, yeah. And the thing is that they believe anything they see on TV. They see that cream, that I've been watching on the news networks. Oh, I got this for get this for $20. Why pay $60? It's got CBD in it. Somebody brought me a little vial like this and it was clear. And I'm like, I just look at it and know there's no CBD in there. It's like, it's like water. But I've only paid $6.99 for it.
Right.
I'm like, okay.
Well, we got a long way to go to increase education
Absolutely.
on that, but I think that's a great.
The seniors are the vulnerable ones in that area because they want it, and they're the
Right.
ones in the 1960s that used to smoke and get high. So for them, it's like revisiting. I got a phone call from a county here, and they knew I worked in geriatrics. Actually, they knew I worked in CBD, and they said, "We need you to do a presentation." I mean, the room was packed with seniors, and they said, we're having a problem. We're having a problem with the seniors. And what is it? And they said they're self-medicating. And I'm like, that's been happening for years. We do that all the time. They'll go home and they're anxious and they'll start drinking alcohol, and they use it to self-medicate. And they're like, no, they are smoking weed and they are high and they're mixing it with their medicines and they have falls, and we have to send our volunteers. Can you please come and tell them that there's also CBD? And so I go and I do a presentation on what's the difference between CBD, THC, and what to look for in seniors. And the stories that come out, the people that come and visit, it changes their lives. It's wonderful.
Well, that's great. I really thank you for your time, and it's been great meeting you. And thank you for all the work that you're doing, and it's wonderful. I can't wait to get to know you more. I'm sure our paths will cross in the industry, and let's definitely stay in touch. But thank you so much for taking time for us this weekend.
Thank you, Ashley. Same here.
Have a nice afternoon. Thank you.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to today's show. Always brought to you by Magic Immuna Tea, available at packedwithlife.com. A mushroom tea that tastes great. Try it. Magic Immuna Tea, packedwithlife.com.